Representative Orso, since Mr. Edmonds had the opening statement. And this is a 2 or 3 part question. What do you believe to be the 2 or 3 most significant issues for this race related specifically to your district and then related to our state? And how do you plan on addressing those issues if elected?
Time is on 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Yes, okay. Some of the challenges that we face again are traffic. I passed Act 358, which is to provide for our new Mississippi River Bridge in the capital region. We would use GARVEE bonds to do so. GARVEE is a federal funding source that we could use our dollars that come in to provide for that. However, our state budget, the allowance that we have does not allow us to use GARVEE, but it is one way that we need to start looking at options. There are other options being discussed, tolls, HOV lanes. All of these are not new ideas. These have been discussed for many years in our area. The budget, as it relates to our economy, certainly businesses are impacted by that. LSU, which is a major driver in this parish, is certainly important. The amount of people that are employed by LSU, the amount of students who go to LSU. So those two are interrelated. The NFIB, which is the National Federation of Independent Businesses, has endorsed me in this race. We've also been endorsed by Future PAC, which is the East Baton Rouge Parish Chamber, for again working to find solutions to make sure that the budget is reasonable and it protects the areas that we feel most important. Healthcare. Over 6% of the population of the state work in the healthcare industry. Major cuts to healthcare would be devastating. LSU alone received $388 million from the tax revenues that were increased. Pennington received $4 million. So we are putting money back in the economy. We had to look at the tax credits. Over 42 corporations do not pay any state taxes, and they were getting refunds. So when you hear the revenues that were reduced, that is a significant impact, and that was a number that Secretary Barfield reported early this year. So again, the budget, traffic again, and also looking at the education. We provided the Common Core compromise. You know, the Common Core becomes the default standard in our schools. Public schools, if we can come up with better standards, we'll put that in place. But I think what we're looking at right now is making sure that we can move forward with higher standards to better the students in our economy.
Let me ask you just a quick follow-up in relationship to the budget, and then the rest of the candidates can also answer this follow-up question as well. So one of the ways in which Governor Jindal in this past legislative session, a measure he used in order to balance the budget was what you affectionately referred to just a few moments ago as the SAFE plan. Would you give a few details or specifics related to that plan and how you think that specifically overall helps to actually reduce?
SAFE was a mechanism that Governor Jindal and Grover Norquist came up with to provide a revenue-neutral response to the revenues that were raised by the student assessment for valuable education. So there was a $2,200 per student assessment, and the offset was the SAVE program. That no one really liked it, and my colleague is correct. It was quoted in basically taking castor oil. But when you look at sitting in that seat and you have to press the button, do you let higher education go under? Because this wasn't a bluff higher education call. Credit rating agencies have actually put Louisiana's university bonds on a credit watch list. So this was real. Credit agencies don't just do that for fun. That's legitimate. So we had to make a business decision, because when you're sitting in the seat, and other than Ryan, no one else has had to press the buttons for yes or no on an issue. And you have to make the decision. And I was not going to stand there and let the universities go bankrupt in this state.
Thank you. Ms. Davis. I'm going to repeat any part of that question if you need me to.
Obviously, we're probably all going to have the same 3 top priorities for District 66 and District 69, and I think that are our top priorities in our state. Number 1 is the budget. The budget affects everything. It affects healthcare, education, economic development, workforce, transportation, infrastructure. We've got to get the budget under control. We have to develop long-term solutions to this problem. We can't keep Band-Aid fixes. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. Now, what do? We have to organize the budget. We have to prioritize the budget. Prioritizing means undedicating some statutory dedications. There are about 300 statutory dedications in our system. Not all of those can be touched. Some are constitutionally dedicated, some are statutorily. We don't want to touch funds like the Transportation Trust Fund. We don't want to touch funds like the Budget Stabilization Fund, which is the rainy day fund. Those funds need to be there and they need to be dedicated, but we need to make sure that those monies are being used wisely and being used for the proper purposes. There are some issues, though. There are some statutory dedications that we can certainly look at shifting those dollars to fund transportation, education, healthcare. Every year at the Capitol, education and healthcare are on the chopping block, and that's because those are non-discretionary funds. We need to stop that practice. Another big issue in this district, in District 66, all over Baton Rouge, is education. We have been fighting with education for decades, and I think that finally parents and educators are now realizing that this has to be a priority. It has to be a priority because a good education system translates into a ready workforce. We need to provide choice for our parents and students. We need to have high standards. We need to demand excellence in our public schools. We need to demand excellence in all of our schools. We need to provide children the tools they need to have a career that they're ready for when they graduate, or they have to be ready to enter a university. We have to recognize that not all students are ready or going to choose a path to university. Some are going to go to careers. We have to work with firms like the Associated Builders and Contractors, the unions, the community and technical colleges, to make sure that we are training a workforce that's ready when they graduate from high school. We need to make sure that we're training our kids to be prepared, to be ready to enter the universities. So many of these kids are entering college not ready. We have to be able to prepare them. Transportation. Funding is a huge issue. We have to look at alternative sources of funding, toll roads, public-private partnerships. We need to be able to work with local, state, and federal officials to get the funding needed. We need to come together as a community and as a region so that we can prioritize what needs to get done first. Sure, we need New Bridge. We need to widen I-10. There are lots of issues.
We'll come back to a few questions related to the budget and specifically transportation. So
Okay.
thank you for that
Thank
response. Mr. Day.
Thank you. Trying to remember your question. Ms. Davis is exactly right. We're all going to have the same issues. They're the issues that we're all facing here today, and that's traffic, education, and the budget. As a construction professional, I love to see more spending, on the constructions, on the revenue side. However, 14 cents of every dollar we send up to the Department of Transportation actually gets spent on concrete, rebar, and steel, and asphalt. That's not effective. We can keep sending money into that bucket, but that bucket has a giant hole in the bottom of it. So I'm absolutely for prioritizing transportation spending, but we have to fix the bottom of the bucket in the Department of Transportation and Development. So clean up the Department of Transportation waste, then prioritize transportation funding. You can't send them more money, it's just going to keep falling out of the bottom. Thank you, Mr. Orso. We absolutely must build a southern bridge in East Baton Rouge Parish or in Ascension Parish or somewhere in the, right there in the middle. And we have to connect that to the other side of the river. I hear some professionals say, well, that'll take 10 years until we can get the plans drawn and get started in construction. And I absolutely don't believe that. They have firms out there that can design, build this stuff. The Corps of Engineers already has 2 approved sites where this thing could go. It's that type of mentality that's up there now that's, government 10 years is 20 or 30. So when people say that, I'd like to get everyone at the Department of Transportation that believes that and say, okay, thank y'all so much, but we no longer need your assistance. We can get started on a new bridge in the next 2 years if we want to make it a priority. And fourth, we need to add capacity to new routes. When we widen Essen and widen Jefferson Highway and widen these streets, that's really good and it is needed. But it's been proven time and time again that widened streets just basically add short-term capacity that more cars are going to fill. We need alternate routes. We have to build new routes around this city, around the parish, and around the state. I agree with the other folks up here. Private partnerships, tolls. Those are all important tools that we're going to have to use, as well as reforming the capital outlay process. We're going to need to take the politics as much as possible out of the capital outlay process, because sometimes things get funded that aren't a priority. I don't know if you've seen the Audubon Bridge up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bridge. It's in the wrong place. That was politics. Other issue, education. So we have to restore accountability in this system. As a father, I have 2 young children, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and effectively,
We've run out of time on that response. We'll come back to education and additional people.